if it
I
takes
don't
me to
know.
a waiting room.
Let's see.
Starting after meeting for Facebook Live. Oh, we're live. Okay.
Ah,
So let me
it's
check on.
happening. Mm.
Okay, I'm thinking there's a delay or something. Let me.
Is there? Let's see. A delay on my voice or the video?
Let's see. I'm wondering. Hi, Facebook world. I'm trying to figure out our logistics here. Hold on, just 1 second.
Mhm.
Okay.
Puppy dog there. Mm.
Can I hear me on? Okay, I think we're good. If
Oh.
anyone's watching this live, if they could let me know that we are live, that would be amazing.
Mm.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone who's watching the live or the replay. I'm so excited to be here with my really good friend who has been we've been on a journey together over the last 8 months. And I've decided to bring him on today to interview him on a few topics. We're going to kind of flow with today's conversation. But my personal experience with Jawai I has been that we met through a program called Remember. And we have decided to co-facilitate a program together, the same program. And so that's really how our connection was built, was going through this transformational journey together, first as students and then as in the facilitator training. And we've just developed a really close relationship that we decided to work together in bringing the class to you in our global classroom. So I'm going to give you more of the details on that afterwards, but I wanted to introduce Jawai to all of you. And also, this is going to be a fun interview for me too, because I'm going to be hearing a lot more about Jawai and Jawai's journey just through life in general. We're going to cover some things that he is an expert in, which let me give the formal introduction so that I don't miss any important points. So Jawai is a psychotherapist, a hypnotherapist, which we're going to be talking about because I'm really interested in hearing more about hypnosis, a yoga instructor, an accredited mindfulness meditation teacher, a transformational coach, and the founder of AMAR Centre for Mindfulness and Human Thriving. So he's also the author of the INNATE THRIVIng Process, which I'd love for you to tell us more about in this interview. He has a meditation practice of 20 years, a private practice in Burleigh Heads, Australia, and he's been facilitating workshops and courses and retreats for over a decade. So Jawai works with the principle that all life is designed to thrive, including human beings, and his work is really founded on natural law and life force and soul consciousness. And we're going to get into his experience with working with the TAO as well, which I'm also curious to know more about. And my personal experience with Jawai has just been healing in so many ways. We've been doing coaching sessions together. I've got to experience hypnosis with him, which is actually my first time experiencing hypnosis. And the energy of you, Jawai, your energy is just the divine masculine, also the divine feminine, very balanced, very grounded, has been such a gift to my life in getting to spend so much time with you. And it's so cool to me that I'm in Mexico, Jawai is in Australia, and I literally feel like I've known you for so long. You're such a brother. You're such a kind soul. You've really helped me in my healing process in so many ways. So I'm honored to have you here today, and I'm really excited to introduce you to my community, who is full of healers and eclectic human beings, and we're also a global community. So welcome, Jawai.
Thank you, sister. I feel to say, yeah, just hearing you share, it's so mutual, this appreciation, this love, and it just fills my heart, knowing that we have this connection and that we are able to share, so deeply and contribute to each other's journey. And as well as share our learnings, with our brothers and sisters. So thank you so much, for being here and for this invitation. Yeah.
Thank you. Recibo con amor. Receive with love. So let's just start with you introducing yourself from wherever you want to begin. I know you have roots in Brazil, right?
Yeah.
So I said in our that I was going to ask you to give me you wrap up your life in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Wow.
Tell us about you.
I'll try. So yes, I was born in Brazil, in São Paulo, actually, the big city of São Paulo. And I feel I was very, very fortunate my family had a farm in Goiás, which is at the heart of Brazil. So since I was a child, I used to go to this farm and spend summer in the farm. And the farm was just wild, it was beautiful. It was a lot of wilderness, a lot of connection with nature and with animals. I remember seeing footprints of jaguars, wild pigs, and crocodiles. And I feel that those early life experiences have really colored, who I am and my consciousness, and a connection to nature, a deep appreciation to nature. Even I feel it's so interesting how our experiences, they echo in our being, for good or for bad, as we'll dive into with hypnosis. So yeah, there's just this deep gratitude for having that as a part of my life. I lived there until I was about 18 years old, and then just my adventure spirit, I just felt that there was more for me to experience. And I just went on a journey. I went to California and then later to Australia. I ended up here and totally fell in love with this land. If for those who have been here, there is such a pure essence I feel to this land. It's very primal and it's very spacious. Just the populations we see, there's not a lot of people, and the land is just so well kept. And so just started going camping everywhere. Really, felt at home here. And then got my visa. I started a young family when I was 21, turning 22. I had my first daughter, Malu. And yes, I had 3 children and a beautiful relationship of about 17 years, which was an amazing, honest love journey, in which very challenging, given that we had different just ideas about life and things that we wanted to experience in life. So it was very challenging, but very genuine and honest, and such a beautiful healing and growth experience. So yeah, and then separated about 6 years ago. And within that, around that time, say it was 2016, I was with my family, young family, and really kind of in the rat race, as we can all end up in that, really trying to survive in this reality, and just feeling overwhelmed and kind of disconnected with my essence, and just feeling like so much rush, while at that time I felt my being really wanted just to be present.
Mhm.
And I wanted to be present with my children. You know, when I feel when we have kids as well, it really takes us deeper into so many different things, you know. Really shows our shadows, you know, our hurts and our, you know, our difficulties, our challenges, our unhealed patterns, as well as, for me, it touched on that longing to come back to what is natural, you know, to what is really real. Because I found myself being angry at times with my children, out of stress and kind of desperation, trying to meet the demands of life. And so that led us to, we had a townhouse at the time, so we sold that townhouse and went traveling as a family. So it was a big, you know, step towards being more free. We went to New Zealand, went on a motorhome with the family, yeah, for 5 weeks, and it was just so precious to experience, you know, adventure as a family, the kids young, and I stayed in a farm. It's called the Freedom Farm. It was a place where they would really they really live in the Kabbalah wisdom, ancient Israelite wisdom and ways of being. So experience that we, as a family, and which brought us all close together at that time. Yeah, and then went to India, did yoga teacher training in India. Yes, came back and then settled in around the Northern Rivers, you know, in Australia, around Byron Bay.
Okay.
Yeah, and just been going deeper and deeper into a just into healing and consciousness and love, presence, all you know, all these beautiful things. And it's quite, you know, it's quite a, there's a lot. It's hard to put it into yeah, to 5 minutes, but it's just been fascinating, you know, the whole journey. And studied psychology, as you mentioned. You know, my love for people took me to study psychology and clinical psychology.
Mhm.
And yeah.
So what drew you to, let's go straight into the work around
Yeah.
around hypnosis,
Okay.
because I know I've experienced sessions with you and it seems more of a, like, especially for this community, because we have a lot of channelers in here, we have a lot of people doing energy work, and it seems like working on that subconscious level is becoming more and more important. Um, so
Yeah.
can you, yeah, can you give a little bit of an explanation? Well, if you want to tell a personal story of how you found it, but more so too of like, what is hypnosis? Maybe for people who are a little bit skeptical or haven't experienced it, and who does it help? What have you? And I personally would love to hear
Yeah.
stories of clients you've worked on. Like,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
know it can be
Sure.
such deep work.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. It's yeah, I love sharing about this. You know, given my history with different therapeutic modalities, you know, psychology and all of these things, and all of what I've learned, I've never come across something that is so powerful and so transformational, like unbelievable, unbelievable. So I've been working with hypnosis for about a year and a half to 2 years, about close to
Okay.
2 years now. And I've experienced the process myself first in the training, of course. And and I will speak particularly to this type of training. That was the training that I had. So let's say just generally how I see hypnosis is the process of putting the conscious mind into a state of rest, in the body in a state of deep relaxation, and then taking our consciousness to the depths of the unconscious, where everything is possible, you know, where there's infinite possibilities. So hypnosis is that, and then hypnotherapy is using that state and that potential to bring about healing, you know, going in journeys in consciousness that are really healing. And I'll share, you know, TRTP, this process. There's so many different processes out there, and my understanding is of TRTP. So there's three main things that happen in that state of hypnosis, and so which is divided in 3 sessions. The first session is really about replacing the unconscious core beliefs, you know, our negative beliefs, with life-affirming beliefs. As you know, because what tends to happen is we have life experiences, and from those hurtful life experiences, we develop conclusions and beliefs about life. You know, if we are criticized a lot by our parents, we'll feel that we are never enough. You know, if there was a parent leaving, there's that sense of abandonment, or someone passing away, you know, and the key thing here is that there is an actual experience in consciousness of that reality. So that reality, it's seated deep in our unconscious. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how do you help the client identify those core beliefs?
Okay. Yeah. So how we do in this process is there is a homework, and the client writes down all the major hurtful life events that they've had in their life. So they sit with themselves and they reflect, and it's quite direct. You know, it's like, okay, let's go into the major events in your life that were hurtful: separation, loss, grief, abuse, bullying, since birth. You know, even birth. So they write it down, and from that, you as a therapist then look at that list, and then you can, from the nature of the experience, you can deduct the core beliefs that go along with that. Okay. You know, and that are operating from what they actually experienced. And then you come up with the opposite of that, you know, life-affirming beliefs that are, you know, really that transform that belief. So that's one part of the process, you know, really. There's a deep process of cleansing as well. In that state, there's a deep process of cleansing at a cellular level. You know, it's a beautiful journey of feeling transformation and healing at the cellular level, at every cell in your being. So changing unconscious core beliefs, and also introducing you to the truth of who you are, which is exciting. You know, it's so exciting. And I feel like we are in times where we are opening more to the truth of who we are collectively. You know, we are letting go of the narrative, of the mainstream narrative, and inquiring and having experiences and connections and journeys through all sorts of ways, exploring the qualities, which I feel are the qualities of the soul consciousness. So in that, there is a lot of tapping into a space of sovereignty. You know, the truth of who you are, and the qualities of wholeness, which we are whole at level of soul, whole, even omnipresence. You know, we consciousness exists across space and time. Also that power, the power of the soul to decide for itself who it is and how you are in this world. And I love it, you know, how I find it that this process came in a time in my life that was so perfect, because through, as we'll touch on, plant medicine as well, my own healing journey and experiences with plant medicine, I was feeling a very strong energy of that sovereignty, you know, that divine intelligence that is underlying all of creation. So this process invites that energy. And so I've been having so much fun, you know, tapping into that state as well as sharing it, because it's like a joint journey. As we step into that space together, you know, and bringing those qualities, those qualities are felt. And the more real it is for the therapist, you know, the more real it is for the person experiencing as well.
I have so much to say about that too. I mean, that's it's been extremely exciting to discover for myself who I am. Remember, that's, I mean,
Yes.
the word remember has never had so much charge.
Yes.
And so it's remembering. And yeah, just like you said, when you start to remember and you start to remember who you are and who we are and what we're doing here, you just want to share it with everyone. And and that's why, I mean, as therapists, we know that the work never ends. And I'm probably, you know, so many people know what I'm talking about, but I guess I'm talking to myself. Like, I had this idea of I was going to do the work until I healed, and then there would be just not really any more work to do. But there's so many levels, deeper levels of remembering who we are. And then it becomes our job really to share that with the world.
Exactly. True. And I so resonate with that. The depth of our being is like it's never ending, and how much we can embody the qualities of soul, it's unbelievable. And that kind of reminds me of something that is very present these days, which is like a constant evolution. The possibility, as you're saying, this remembering of who we are, that every day it's a fresh new day, and it's a day of evolving. It's a day that we can tap into our higher selves, invite ourselves. Doesn't matter what it was yesterday or just a minute ago, like to decide from that space of sovereignty and decision. I decide for myself that I am evolving every single day. I'm going a little deeper into the truth of my being. And just, and that brings back to this process of hypnosis, which is not only like a healing experience, but also it's like a remembering the power to choose, the power to come into that space of sovereignty within ourselves. And when we are faced with a challenge, whatever it is, when we're faced with states of being within ourselves, and then calling upon that sovereignty. There's something that part of the process as well. There's a saying, and it goes like this: I choose to know in every cell in my body, every aspect of who I am, right down to my soul, that I am abundant. You feel the qualities of that. And we can say whatever it is. I choose to know in every cell of my body, right down to my soul, that money comes easily for me. I choose to know in every cell in my body, right down to my soul, that I am calm. I am calm. I choose to know in every cell in my body, right down to my soul, that I am love, that all is well. So it's that first process is cleansing the nervous system, bringing about the new, instilling and bringing about the new positive beliefs, and opening to the truth of the soul.
And in the sessions, I mean, again, I've experienced it on a not so focused level. We just kind of did it. I think you did this for me on accident, or just because I'll do a couple of times, and not this exact process. But I mean, I definitely know what it feels like to be in that state of knowing, and remembering, and being so sure and so certain of, the truth that I'm unconditional love, and that I'm connected with everyone, and the compassion and these beautiful things that sometimes our conditioning doesn't allow us to really embody. So after and with these sessions, what's the integration process? Do people come out just being changed, or is there
Definitely. I will speak to that. I feel just to just explain the whole process, and then the transformation that happens. And because once we understand the process, we understand why it's so powerful. So that that's the first part. The second part is then when we go back and heal the traumas. We from that space of empowerment, the person listens to the recording for about a week, catalyzing that empowerment, cleansing and empowerment. And then we go back into the hurtful life events, and we go back not as a victim, not as the younger self, but we go from the sovereign being, and you go there to set things right. And there's basically what we're doing is we are pulling the little drawer of that experience that is sitting deep in the unconscious. You know, and the unconscious, the job of the unconscious is to keep us safe. So it's, you know, there's the videotape loop playing, you know, I've got to be careful, something bad can happen at any time, I'm not good enough, you know, even if we are not aware. So we get that original experience that created that belief in the first place. We bring about, the person enters that experience as the sovereign being, and then we discharge the emotional charge. There is and that's what I really love about it. It's we tap into that warrior energy, as well as, you know, a primal mammalian force or protector of young. You know, like in nature, when it's like a younger, like say a lioness and the cub is being attacked, that lioness really come in its full power. Same thing with all animals, like zebras, or as human beings, when we are in a state of kind of survival, we can either go into hopelessness, fight and flight and freeze and hopelessness, or we can fight for our own survival. And when we tap into that energy, there's less trauma in that. It's quite adaptive. But what it has happened many times, because we were so young and we didn't know how to deal with the circumstances, we fell into a space of victim and powerlessness. So we bring in this energy, this, you know, there's so much energy and power, and do a process of discharging that. So now that memory is no longer existing in the unconscious as a victim, as a fragilized, however we say that, as a fragile kind of experience. You are empowering that, you have shifted that experience within your being. So, and also attending to the core emotional needs. You know, we go there to the younger child and attend to what they actually need and give what they need after that charge. So that's the second part. And then, you know, there's a deep rearrangement of experiences in consciousness. And then the third part is when we anchor the future. You know, what is it that we want to be experiencing now? And we go that, and all we kind of, I like to think of this way, we get the menu of the universe of all the possibilities of anything that you like to experience. What would you like to experience? And we anchor that as a felt lived experience. So that's the process. And you know,
I remember you doing this in a memory of mine with my dad. And
yes.
like I'm sharing it now because I've struggled with power and claiming my position in the world and worthiness. And I remember intuitively we went into that memory with you, and I was able to and it just came about. I remember it just came up.
Yes.
And you guided me into this process where I brought my like higher self in and was able to just take over my power. And that was in August, I remember, because I was traveling at that point. And my life, I mean, I'm just connecting the dots literally in this minute. Like my life in terms of being able to set boundaries, especially with men, because it was related to my dad. So I always felt powerless in relationships with men. It's completely changed my ability to see and don't and know how to do it. It's like, it was actually like knowing how to, like, I didn't even know that it was possible because of that imprint, right?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm just thinking about that right now as you were sharing.
Beautiful.
Like,
Amazing. Yes. Yes. And that's right. You know, we do the healing with one experience, in it kind of it spills over, you know, our life in different relationships and all that, because that's the core experience where the core hurt has been created. And once that is healed, it's worked on and healed, then it changes, you know, how we feel within ourselves. Yeah. And I feel as well to share here as well that this, let's say the coming back to, and how it has helped me as well. I've always been, you know, there's been a very strong energy of love and kindness and softness within my being. And I love it in experiencing it, and I'm so grateful for that. And lately in this process, you know, this process has helped so much is to tap into that strength and that power. And I feel like we are in times, you know, we see what is happening with the world and in our personal lives, but also, you know, in the collective, that we are being called to step into our sovereignty and our strength, and live from that space, you know, so that we can collectively, you know, contribute to a shift to a world that is more harmonious with the forces of nature and the beauty that is, you know, within us all. So it's quite a deep process. And to you know, share on that question about the outcomes, sister, it's been incredible. I'm at all, I know, like at the depth of this, but I keep being mind blown, you know, client after client of the power of this. And I share it with all my being, you know, all honesty. For example, yesterday I just had a client that I've been supporting. It's a woman that she's under the NDIS scheme here around disability support. And she came into the session, you know, she had a brain injury, complex trauma, abuse, you know, since quite young, since 5 years old, and came really, you know, you could see that she was in deep suffering, even the way that she walked, and she couldn't fill in the form properly, you know, like name and telephone and details, because she was such in distress, just sitting in sessions and crying. Beautiful woman of Aboriginal background. And so we went through the process. This woman comes in the third session, you know, and she's got her hair pulled back. She's wearing differently. She's like a present, alert. Her communication is flowing. I'm like, like, wow. You know what? How? And I feel like, you know, the process is amazing, all that, but basically, it's not this. It's the power of consciousness. When we address things at the level of consciousness, I really feel it, and in my life experience has shown that the body is responding to the frequencies of our consciousness, the state of body, the state of health, whatever it is. Our emotions are responding to the frequency and state of consciousness. You know, and when we go and straight into that soul level and begin to shift the energy at that level, the body, the emotions, our life, our external environment begins to respond that. Because ultimately, this is a consciousness over matter universe. The whole thing comes about from consciousness, from this divine consciousness, this incredible, miraculous intelligence. So yeah, I think we are in a new era where we are tapping into this, you know, this potential to begin to operate, to do our healing through that, in that level, as well as to live our life from that knowingness, from that awareness, and keep expanding. You know, knowing this, I get really excited because I feel like, how far can we go with this knowledge? You know, and this way of being, how far, how much can we change within ourselves, how much we can impact our communities, and it's exciting.
I feel the exact same way, because it just keeps getting more and more expansive.
Yeah.
But to speak to the trauma piece and to speak to the core wounds, just again, you know, that's a huge shift, and especially in terms of therapy and healing and self-improvement, whatever, you know, whether people are seeing therapists or whether they're on the spiritual path. Like I was on the spiritual path for 10 years, but wasn't able to get to those core wounds. I was just learning mentally. And I see this with a lot of people I talk to, and a lot of people in this community. We've had this conversation, is therapy for me was just being diagnosed with something. Okay, you have depression. Cool. Well, what do I do with that? Yeah, you have anxiety.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have childhood trauma. Cool. What do I do with that? And this is what you're talking about is, and the plant medicine, let's get into that conversation next too. That was what it was for me. And I see hypnosis being the same thing, but now it is, because we do have the awareness. It's sound healing, it's breath work, anything that takes me out of here gets me more into the energy, the frequency. The healing just happens. And there's it's magic. To me, it's magic. This is how we can have
incredible
breakthroughs. This is why they, ayahuasca, or all plant medicines maybe, but ayahuasca specifically, people refer to it as 10 years of therapy in one night. And that's really what we're talking about, is when you, so can hypnosis be too, because when you get into the subconscious and you do what you're talking about, is addressing, wherever the root of our pain is. Once we go back and integrate those parts, it just doesn't play out in our conscious reality anymore.
Yes.
Do you have anything to share that you feel like needs to be shared about hypnosis before we move on to a conversation
no,
about
I just invite people, to really consider and do it, because at the end of the day, I feel it's our happiness, and our wellness and our health. And when we know that something is so transformational and so real, I think, we all deserve to be experiencing this healing.
I do have one more question, actually, that I was going to ask in the beginning. Is everyone able to be hypnotized?
Okay, so that's a good question. Within this approach that I am working with, you don't necessarily need to go into a deep state of trance. It's not about that. It's not, let's say, there is also a stage hypnosis where, that state of trance is kind of like that's that goal, and that's what you're working with, going into a deep state of trance. With one, it's mainly therapeutic. So the person can still be aware that they are in the room, the body's here, they're listening, you can still be conscious. All that is required is that you go on the journey. And we do a little exercise before, like a guiding journey, and seeing how much the person connects, how much you can feel you are, either seeing or feeling whatever is being guided. Because whatever we can experience in our mind, it's impacting our body and our emotions and our consciousness.
So it's more about, what I'm hearing is it's more about safety. It's more about a sense of safety and being able to be just comfortable with the person in front of you, versus being able to go in like a deep, like out of body experience.
That's it. And there's that, the person kind of needs to want to go in that, exactly. If we feel safe, and we trust in the person, the practitioner, we can relax our mind and our consciousness, our body, and go on a journey with it. So there's that susceptibility element, which I don't necessarily, I feel like the space that we are working with, that I've been working with hypnosis, it's such a loving space of healing, that I find that people just kind of surrender and just go on the journey.
And it's so easy to surrender and go on a journey with you. And I actually say that with so much behind that, because I come from a background of not trusting men. I had to watch my like to become aware of that. When it started to become apparent that it didn't matter who I was with, if they were a male, something in my body was getting tense. And so that just, the way I've worked with you and just been able to relax into my presence because of your presence has actually been incredibly healing for me.
Beautiful. Thank you, sister. Really, I feel exactly the same. I feel exactly the same. Just so much safety on your hands. I feel like safety because of the love and because of the knowledge that you have and your being. If you operate in such a beautiful, honest, wise state, that it's been incredible. feel so fortunate that we have this connection and we just keep sharing.
And it keeps expanding and expanding.
Yeah, there we go. It's expanding now. We expanded our bubble.
And it will keep expanding. I'm so excited to go
Exactly.
into the teaching role with you. So
Yeah.
let's come back to the Remember course in just a moment. I would love to talk about plant medicine
Yes.
and specifically, well, I always like to know stories too. So tell me how you got introduced to the plant
Yeah,
medicine world,
sure.
what you've experienced with it in terms of what it's given you, and then also just how anything you want to share and how it relates to healing, expanding consciousness,
Beautiful.
anything you want to share.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I came across plant medicine, specifically ayahuasca, in 2016, about 5 years ago. And it was unbelievable. It was within the context of the Saint Dime Church.
Okay.
Yes, and with the beautiful community here in Australia. And there were a couple of things that happened from that, first journey with the medicine that was really, really incredible. The first thing that I noticed, in that journey, straight after the journey, I was traveling to Tasmania actually the morning after, and I hadn't made my bags. And, I heard about it, I felt the calling, I just went there and experienced it. And I remember in the next day catching the plane to Hobart in Tasmania. I was doing this training in schema therapy. And what I felt, which was incredible, that the medicine brought to my mind, my psyche, my being, is that until that point, I had all of these different experiences and trainings, in clinical psychology and all of the kind of the principles and the teachings around that. My experience with positive psychology, the psychology of thriving, as well as my experiences with yoga, tapping into that space of the wisdom of yoga, yogic philosophy, as well as felt experiences of oneness that I had since it started when I was like 19, when I arrived in Australia. These experiences of unity with the universe and unconditional love. And so what happened is that I had all of these things fragmented within myself, and I did not know who I was. In a way, I do not know, how do I know that I love people and I love, supporting people being well and happy and thrive. I just didn't know what like a label I use and who am I, what practitioner am I? It was just so confusing, knowing that every of these bodies of knowledge and wisdom have something to offer. And I kind of wanted to tap into those things, but I just didn't fit into any of them, like fully as a soul thing. And after the journey, there was this beautiful synthesis of all of these fields, all of this, and a liberation. I felt like, I felt so free because I realized, I am a human being. I'm a sovereign human being. I'm a being. I don't necessarily need to attach my being to any label. I work with the natural laws of creation, with the laws of nature that support a human being to thrive, that are underpinning the thriving of the body, of the mind, of the soul. And then I call that innate thriving. It's what I call for the whole process of human nature, the natural forces around thriving that are flowing through a human being, and then living a life in alignment with those forces. And in my experience has been increasingly leading myself to being well, to be more content, to be stronger in my body, healthy in my body, love, and all of these things, and channeling. I can share a bit on that as well, at some point if we have some time. But yeah, so there was this synthesis you know, there was the synthesis of all of those things. There was also, you know, just this being revealed, the joy of celebration as a community, you know, just the singing of the brothers and sisters in that space of devotion, of connection to the creator, you know, in that space. And just seeing everyone singing together, it's like a returning, a remembering again, you know, of our deep connection to community, of the truth of community, you know, the truth of loving community, living, you know, simply connected to the source of life. So that was that. And since then I've been, the other thing as well that I've noticed, you know, from that journey is that it felt very familiar. I felt like I know this land, you know, because of those that quality of stepping outside of our identity, our self-concept of who we think we are, and suddenly being, you know, revealed all of these different archetypes, and having our consciousness experience the quantum field, the vastness of it all, the dance between the forces in creation. It was like a wow, you know, and having had some of those experiences myself, naturally occurring, like in nature, I felt like a very, in a way, safe. I felt safe. I felt this, you know, this is part of my being. I want to keep exploring this.
I thank you so much for sharing. I never get tired of hearing people's experiences with ayahuasca. In particular, plant medicine, of course, all of the other ones, but the grandmother has been a master teacher of mine since my very first ceremony. And I just wanted to say one thing, that it is, in regards to it being a mystical experience. Not everyone has mystical experiences. I've had plenty of ceremonies where it's been all about working through trauma and inner child stuff, and even past life density, you know. So, but then there is this potential for remembrance. There's an essence of that in all of my ceremonies, I will say. It's completely different for everyone, but I love that you're touching on like the mysticism, the oneness, because it's one thing to know and study, like, oh yeah, we're all of the same source energy, you know. You tell someone to treat your neighbor as if they were yourself, but your neighbor just like did this horrible thing to you. It's like we don't get how to and there's reasons for us to experience all of the other emotions as well, but when you get the experience, even if it's just for a 6-hour journey, or maybe even 2 seconds of that within that journey of the truth and the remembrance of what we all are. I remember my very first journey. That was the first thing that I noticed was there was no separation between anything. I think I was even like having the visuals where I could see the outline of my body, but I couldn't see that it was physical. And I just looked around the room, and I just knew that it was like, wow, this is what it is. This is what we are. We're all the same exact
pure energy
thing. Pure energy. Pure energy. And I don't believe that we're meant to be humans and in that all the time, because we are having the human experience, but boy, can it ever raise your frequency, and certainly set me off on a path of wanting to find myself so that I could be of service, you know, wanting to heal what I needed to heal within me so that I could share that with others.
Beautiful. So true. It's so rich. It's such a rich experience, and it has so many different flavors and aspects to it. And I do, fully, you know, see and resonate with those elements of the journey that are really healing. You know, they're really, I've had a lot of, I remember this journey that was entirely about my children. I had all of them coming up, you know, and I actually devoted that as an intention. I wanted to devote that experience for healing, transformation within my children. And each one of them came into the journey, and I saw them, and I had some deep conversations and exchanges and remembrance around them, you know, and deep love and support and spiritual support, you know, with whatever they were going through. It was incredible, sis. The next day when I meet them, they spent some time with their mom and then with me. And the seeing that what was actually happening, it was a clear reflection of the work that we had done. They were actually, you know, my daughter, which was in a space of in a bit of darkness and feeling alone, and at that time she was like back to herself and
Wow.
jumping up on bed, and you know, because I reminded her that, you know, Taina, it's this first sunshine in the morning. It's native Brazilian language in Tupi-Guarani.
Wow, it's
The
beautiful.
first sunshine in the morning. And she had lost at that period. I felt like she was so opaque and so kind of, you know, young teenage years, and she was like, and stepping in the bed and saying this, and I'm this, and I was like, wow, you know, see a reflection in my son going through his healing, falling into his patterns, and we were like working through it. My oldest daughter, you know, having deep conversations about purpose in life, you know, straight after that journey, you know, revealing so much and going. So yes, you know, I feel like the medicine brings so many gifts at so many different levels. And yeah, and sometimes it's not easy as well, you know, and that's the, you know, again, the teachings around that as well, you know, it humbles us. And yeah, we there's always a teaching
There, yes. Thank you
yeah.
for stating that. That I'm still trying to articulate in this course I'm writing about preparation, navigation, and integration around psychedelics. Because I do know, again, this is me integrating it into my being and how I'm going to communicate this, because I definitely know that anything that happens within the journey, and I've had plenty of bad trips, but that's just a perception, because anything you see inside those journeys, anything and everything that happens is we only are going to see it if it's in our consciousness. So it's actually an invitation to open up and maybe look at the shadow or the darker sides, or be, for the first time in our lives, surrender to emotions like we haven't been able to surrender to in you know,
experience them
with our conditioning.
yeah.
I too love the ability to tap into those soul to soul conversations. And almost every time there's a clear ability to communicate with grandmother ayahuasca. And yeah, there's profound, it just takes you to a profound realm where you can do the work that our souls are doing, which is not always as easy for us to know about on the human level.
That's right. Yeah, I feel as well, you know, one of the things that the medicine brings as well, that you touch on a bit, I feel when you speak, you know, that element of magic. And you know, when we look at how we are living collectively life, you know, the state of consciousness that we are on this planet, we see that there's been a desensitization to the miracle of life, to the depth and the beauty and the magic, and how incredible that this existence is. And from that disconnection from this magic and this beauty, this depth, life can become quite monotonous, you know, and quite plain and quite and on the one hand, I think it is part of being human to navigate those moments of living, you know, ordinariness and with total acceptance and being. It's also part of the great miracle. But it's just so exciting as well to see that we are stepping more collectively into ceremony and into being reminded of the beauty, you know, the true beauty of what we are taking part of.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes back to what you shared in terms of what I heard you share on your spiritual awakening. You know, you had insight that the society's pressures and the things we're taught to do and are expected of us, um, were essentially killing you. You know, it's like a
Mhm.
slow death,
It is.
and um, and I still know many people who are in that, but I don't think anyone in the world is really um, not being exposed to the possibilities of this, the possibility of the magic. I mean, choose to perk an ear up to it or choose to stay in the routine. It's not right or wrong.
Yeah.
But I think too, it's just seeing the conversations that I'm having with people who I would never have conversations like this about, seeing people's perception shifts and yeah, seeing people in deep pain. Unfortunately, that's what it takes sometimes to wake people up. I know
Mhm.
that happened for me, luckily at an early age. You know, I had my spiritual awakening at 23 when I couldn't stop using drugs and alcohol. So I got to experience a spiritual awakening at a young age, and I've always said I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Um, but but now it's just seeming more and more important. I think that's why the plant medicines are coming into. Not that everyone needs to do plant medicine, but they just offer us that experience of something we're already starting to wake up to
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
not really
And
know what
that's
it
it.
means.
Kind of we are primed to experience that, huh? That is already there. That potential is there because it's an aspect of who we are.
Yeah,
It's opening those doors.
yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Mm.
So we're running up on the hour. The last question I was gonna ask you was about the Tao. Uh, is
Yeah.
there is there
Yes.
a way that you can
Yeah.
share
Yeah.
the Tao with
I
us?
feel like you know, the Tao has become a part of my name as well, and it's quite a personal relationship with, you know, what is known as the Tao, uh, and you know, the Taoism comes from traditional Chinese ancient wisdom, you know, especially Lao Tzu, and there's that book, the Tao Te Ching,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of that wisdom is shared. And I've also been in contact with the Taoist family here, that share on the traditional Taoist ceremonies and Tao receiving ceremonies of opening the heavenly portal. And it's such a beautiful, honest space. And so what I feel to share really is the simplicity of it all, really. You know, what I resonate with it is that liberation of living life from a space of not, I know we talk about these things and we share and we, you know, there's a lot that is so beautiful to talk about, yet fundamentally nature takes its course. You know, there is a spontaneity and a fluidity and a naturalness to life, and it's so liberating for us to bring our attention to that and let go of all concepts. You know,
Mm-hmm.
follow the movements of our breathing as a natural wave, you know, as a movement that is already happening, really kind of soften our attention and our body and surrender to the perfection of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that even when we see all of the problems that we are seeing in the world and chaos and pain and all of these things, that all of this is existing in the perfection of the Tao, in this incredible existence that follows its natural laws and natural rhythms. So the Tao invites us to live in more harmony with nature, to be more perceiving and more aware of the naturalness of it all. There's also that concept of Wu Wei, Wei being effortful action, like intentional action, and Wu being there is no or no. So no effort action or effortless action. And the
Mm-hmm.
more we align our consciousness with this naturalness that is already occurring, I think we can begin to live in that fluidity more often. And it's beautiful because everything is a part of that, even the struggles, even the emotions, even, everything is a part of that, the great design of the Tao, the movements of the Tao. I often, when I go through a painful experience, there is grief, for example, and I've experienced grief, of relationships, let's say of a marriage, of a family unit kind of dissipating, not fully dissipating, of course, because his love is here and the family is here, but that and another profound, beautiful, heavenly relating, kind of changing shape as well, and the depth of emotion. And whenever that happens, I feel like, wow, look at the movements of the Tao. We're not here to resist the movements of the Tao, control the movements of existence. We can tap into that. There's a beautiful balance, that sovereignty and creator consciousness, and beautiful from divine inspiration and from love. It's beautiful. At the same time, there's the great ocean of existence in the movements of the Tao. So that understanding brings me great comfort. Whatever happens is the movements of the Tao. So good.
If people wanted to, I'm asking for myself too, wanted to just get, a book or a resource to dive into a little bit more of the principles and maybe practices of where to start in this Taoist way, where would one go?
Yeah, I would do what I've done, what I've listened to this audio book, the Tao Te Ching, and I love it how it's spoken, so you can just listen while you're driving. And I really loved like folding clothes, doing house chores, just doing these very ordinary things, listening to the Tao, because you realize that these little things that we are doing, we can kind of soften into them, and the what we call activity can become just like a leaf falling. We are doing this because it's a part of our life. I'm cleaning, folding my clothes because I have clothes, and they keep me warm. And isn't this so natural? What is taking, rather than, I've got to do this. It's like takes us to that space. So we encourage people to do that while they're doing things in their life, as well as just to sit down in the garden and listen. There's this beautiful songs, birds singing in the background as well, this beautiful voice, and kind of just takes you into a journey with the Tao. And I'll share the link on that as well.
Yeah, that'll be amazing. I'll send an email out and do the follow-ups on this video too with that information. Yeah, it's just when you're talking, I haven't studied the philosophy of it, but it just sounds to me like something that's becoming really, really important finally to all of us. Again, an integration piece, because it's not like we haven't heard it before, but just the power of presence.
Yes.
And again, something that continues for me anyway to get deeper. I mean, the more quiet I get, the more I can surrender to not doing, because I'm by nature an active person and love to get stuff done, and there's a time and a place for that, but just we can be present in the doing as well. But it's really become profound to me how much is coming through in this even just the art of contemplation, the art of doing what you said, like being really present with the laundry folding, being really present with the chores, being really present with everything we're doing.
Totally. And one of the benefits I feel of step into that space as well, that is really kind of prevalent now in this moment that we all kind of looking at, that is health. Because when our mind relaxes into the naturalness of life, our body relaxes, our nervous system relaxes. And then when our nervous system relaxes, our immune system begins to operate at its best. So we're keeping ourselves in a state of rest and relaxation and vibrancy.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's so simple. So simple. And
that's right.
so profound. I mean, just
That's
in
right.
the learning experience, the amount of years it takes to to get better and better at relaxing
That's right. And meditation, always, I think, coming back to meditation, the power of meditation. And in my journey, it has been for myself the most profound kind of experience and healing. There's so many different things, but meditation, being that it's been at the core of my journey for many, many years, it's like, it's just going into that non-conceptual present state, accepting, having acceptance and compassion for myself and others, and just resting that awareness. It's like a liberation.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Jawai.
My pleasure, as always.
We could just keep going and going. I do want to ask you one question, and then I'm going to talk a little bit, or we'll talk about the Remember course a little bit. But one of my questions is directly related to the Remember course. So this is where Jawai and I met, was through the Earth Pulse Collective, and we went through a course together called Remember, and we're now going to be, and then facilitator training, and we're now going to be teaching an online group course beginning the end of January. So Remember, for anyone watching, it's a 4-month journey. We meet once a week for 4 months. So it's truly only for the people who are ready to do this deep inner work that Jawai is, of course, passionate about. He's been doing this for 20 years. And so my question for you is, because Remember is such an interesting, I've been writing so much about it and just like how to explain it to people. I mean, there are people who are brand new to this spiritual journey who went through this program. I think there's been 88 of us, and maybe more now with the third round. But I've seen the range of people, like some people who just have not done any self-help work before go through it and had incredible transformations. And then people like you, who are already a therapist, already in this field of coaching and helping people. And people like me who've been on the spiritual journey, not quite at the level of you in terms of service. But what was your experience of Remember as a student? I'm curious to know.
Yes, yeah, I love it. I love it. What brought me to Remember initially was I met Holly. Holly is a dear sister, and she was living here on the Gold Coast, and I really loved the energy of that sister. She is, I noticed that's a free human. That's a free human. She is having fun. She is just really riding what this life has to offer. And what I particularly, personally, my intention to taking the course was that I wanted to expand in my ability to express myself more freely. Because I felt like all of these beautiful things that I'm noticing and living and experiencing, and I want to share that more with others. And somehow I feel like there was this blockage, this self-doubt, not the doubt on the content or the experiences, but just the expression of it and criticism of itself. And because I felt like she was riding that wave so well, and how she was communicating and the content of the course as well, when I began to, initially was the energy, that's like, I want a bit of that. I want to, experience that and grow in that. And then was the content. As I read, I was like, wow, this is quite a profound course. And then I met Dylan, and I met the beautiful brother that Dylan is. And, these two are really flying high, I feel, within themselves and in their service to the world. And I feel they put together it's just so rich, like the content that is in that course. Because like I really resonate with their approach as well. That's why we are, co-facilitating and stepping here, because it offers some very tangible, practical processes and concepts and healing that everyone can benefit from. So it's not just about going, yes, let's experience all these things and oneness and all this magic, which includes that, because simply it is part of the fundamental nature of reality. But rather than, straight into that, there's a whole sequence of healing experiences and learning about our triggers, learning about how to deal with our emotions, doing the inner work, healing our inner child, relating with more awareness, with more love. It's incredible. So I feel as well, like in my experience, it was initially I felt, because I was working within my own program, I felt like, I'm not sure if I should take this program because I've got so many things I'm working on. I feel like I need to actually work on more, giving my services and elaborating my offering more. But then, when I went to the process, it's like, wow, I've learned so much. I've learned so much, so many different strategies, techniques, and not only learned, but also the community, step into that community, which is a community fundamentally founded on love and freedom and mutual support. And, let's go, let's do this, let's, keep evolving together. So yeah, it's, there's so much value, so much beauty in it. Yeah. And then all the what comes after as well, like the connections that we make, the experiences that follow that, and who knows. And that's what I felt like. I felt there was something quite special. I want to be a part of that vortex.
Beautiful. Yeah, I can relate to all of that.
Yeah.
I can relate to all of that. It was, it was, I've never met Dylan. I've never met Holly. What brought me to Holly was that a friend I had been introduced to Bufo in November of last year, and a friend sent over a video of Holly talking about Bufo, because she's also a Bufo facilitator. And I literally, within 48 hours, had signed up for the course just because of the energy. I was just like, I need to do this. The content, I mean, I looked at the content and all of the topics excited me. So that's what got me into the course. But then going through it, I call it, like, I forget, I wrote it down today. Like sometimes I say like, oh, I wish there was a textbook for being a mom, like, what do you do? like you just like look something up, like, what do I do in this situation?
Manual.
And a manual, exactly. Yeah. But that's what I kind of feel like, remember, is like, especially for people right now, no matter where you are on a spiritual journey or healing journey, you don't even have to be on one of those. You can just be human and being like, what the hell is going on with the planet? Right. It's like a textbook for how to do life, because it took me out of my victimhood. It gave me no choice because you have to look at yourself. And those first few modules was just like, the first few weeks I was like, holy shit, what did I get myself into? But I can't go back now. I have to do this, Yes. And Dylan and Holly just laid it out there. It's like, it is our responsibility. It is our responsibility to claim our life, and yes, sometimes we are victimized, but we get really attached to that story. So that's what it helped me with, like, primarily was finally breaking free from that conditioning of victimization, that what I had kind of like just been avoiding taking responsibility for my life. And that happened in the first few weeks. And then I felt like I had all of the tools to continue to practice, to hold space for my emotions, to hold space for hard conversations, to set boundaries. Like, I just had like a little bit of the practical, like you said, like the practical tools to do that for myself, right? Not rely on anyone else, and not rely on another class, and not rely on somebody else to do it for me. Because it teaches you how to do it yourself.
Totally.
And then towards the end, it was just like fun, because then we got to talk about all the spiritual philosophies that I had studied before and touched on. But it was like integrating that and having the baseline tools and the core wounds dealt with enough so that I could start really integrating more of the magic. It's a fascinating adventure. It was a fascinating year. My life is completely different. And and I'm super excited, of course, to
Yes,
now
yes.
be going on this journey with you. I
Mm,
mean, we do both Jawai and I do offer the course one-on-one. I don't know if you're going to do that. I'm going to do that.
yeah.
But I found it quite profound and quite powerful to be in the group coaching setting. So that's what Jawai and I are going to do starting the end of January. We're going to start a group online, taking people through this course together. So I invite you, if you're interested, if it resonates with you, to reach out to one of us. This week, we're doing the pre-sale for that, even though it doesn't start till the end of January. We're starting to get people on board. So reach out to us now. There's a 30% discount on the course
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
until November 30th.
I think, yeah,
And
is it just for the day that Holly was saying how long that's gonna go? I don't know if there's a window where people can sign
we
up.
can offer the 30% now. Yeah.
Uh,
So for
uh,
anyone who enrolls now through November 30th, you'll get a
okay.
30% off discount.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just so worth it for anyone
Yes.
hearing the calling in terms
Yeah.
of, you know, how to live a better life, and no matter where you are on your path.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
feel to share as well, that part of this journey, so there's a content that we're gonna, what is it, 36 modules,
30
lessons? 32,
32.
32 lessons that are all there, rich in content and experience. So there's Dylan and Holly sharing on those. And then alongside, there is the live coaching calls that we're gonna be present. And what I feel so beautiful about that, because those coaching sessions are really an opportunity for participants to be coached, to share where they are at, what is happening, and receive some personal direct coaching for these 4 months. So it's a beautiful combination of taking a course, going through the course, doing the practices, the homework, the meditations, all of those things, as well as being coached through the process.
Thank you so much for bringing up the practicalities and the flow, because that, for me, looking back on it and after hearing other testimonials too of people going through the course, for me the live coaching calls were like sometimes I dreaded them because my stuff was so, I was like, I don't know if I want to share this in front of 20 people, but it ended up being, after every single call, I remember texting my 2 friends, Andre and Lori, and we've been each other's rocks through this whole pandemic. And I remember every single Sunday I would get off those calls just like, I'm reborn. Like I get it.
Yes.
For my own personal healing, because a lot of times what happens in the group coaching situation is you hear someone else's share, and everyone else in the room can relate on a certain level. So you're working through your own stuff, but you're also going deeper because you're hearing other people share and watching other people get coached. So yeah, you bring your stuff to those sessions. And then it's also, it's community, it's family, it's new. Like you said, the Earth Pulse community is strong. So you get access to everyone who's in it and has stayed around, and all the Facebook groups and everything. But really building like going through the course with your family, with your class.
Yes.
Like these people are my soulmates and soul brothers. Like they've bared their souls to me, and I feel like I've known them for for years. And speaking of community, I've not heard this from just myself and my like close knit friends. There's a reason the internet exists. Our soul families are coming together, and there's a calling for us to make connections, and there's no more reason to be lonely and unhappy in our relationships.
At all. Yeah.
And
The
we can
power
find
of community is just unbelievable. Love and community, and seeing each other, for who they are, and embracing and accepting each other, in all our beautiful imperfections, and our power and our genius and our potential. So beautiful. Sister, I'm just noticing as well that it's 11:30 here, and I've got an appointment. Is there anything else that you feel?
No, thank you so much, Jawai. Thank you. It was a pleasure as always. This is really fun.
Yeah.
we'll stay in touch and
For
yeah,
sure.
I'm sure the
Thank you so
community-
much for everyone who is present and, you know, is watching this now or is watching as a replay. You know, beautiful to be here to share. And yeah, you know, I hope that if you feel to go on this journey, it would be a pleasure and an honor to share space. And regardless, you know, so much love and gratitude for us all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aho. Thank you,
Aho.
brother. I'll talk to you soon.
See you.
Thanks for everyone who joined the live. Bye.